Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to the Purveyor in Fallout 76, where, much to my surprise, we've got a 25% off sale going this weekend. So, rather than just the normal 1,000 Scrip, we're going to burn through Scrip on two characters with a mix of ranged and melee weapons, and we'll see what we get. We'll talk about what makes them good, talk about what makes them not so good, and see if Mama Mumbles has anything good for us tonight. Remember, if you like videos like this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter, all the things that I'm supposed to tell you to do. All right, enough chit chat. Let's run on inside and see what we've got today. And our first roll of the day on ranged weapons is a Zealot's pump action shotgun with bashing damage, and VATS critical meter fills 15% faster. So the Zealot's effect, of course, is one of numerous situational damage effects. Not sure how much I love the Zealot's effect. Scorched aren't particularly difficult to kill in most scenarios, so this one's probably lost on this weapon, which is pretty powerful to begin with. But I guess if you go Scorched hunting a lot, maybe you'll use it. Bashing damage, and I'll go into a little detail on my opinion on bashing damage here, so that every other time we see it in this video, we all understand why it's terrible and I just breeze past it. But bashing damage in Fallout 76 is very low. You don't get a lot out of it. So increasing it by 40%, you're basically just getting 40% more of nothing. So it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's not very useful. Ideally, they would change this effect to give you a better area of effect, make your bashing accuracy better, or increase your bashing speed to maybe make it useful during daily ops for the resilient enemies or something like that. But as it stands, it's useless. It's utterly worthless in every way. Now, our third star here, VATS critical meter filling 15% faster, isn't bad, but not a great weapon. Let's see what's next. And we've got another one that, now this is a classic case of a good lineup of effects on a bad weapon. The black powder pistol is a powerful weapon. You can do some serious damage with it if you really work at it, but the furious effect is lost on this. This is a weapon that ideally you're going to be killing things in one shot with, so a weapon that stacks damage for consecutive hits doesn't do a whole lot for you there. Bullets exploding for area damage is great. That gives you increased damage and it gives you area damage. That's fine. But, and then extra agility gives you more AP for VATS and sprinting and all that good stuff. But unfortunately, the black powder pistol, at least to me, just isn't a great weapon. It's really slow, painfully slow to use. It's loud. You can't sneak with it. So, or at least you can't sneak very easily with it. So, unfortunately, this list of great effects is kind of lost on a not so stellar weapon. Unfortunately, not a winner. Let's see what's next. And next up, we've got a Mutant Slayer's Pipe Revolver, again with exploding bullets, that's good, and faster movement speed while aiming. And just in case you haven't picked up what we're doing so far on this character, I'm going to do ranged weapons. The next character will be a mix of melee and ranged. But back to the weapon here. Mutant Slayer's is not a bad effect. Of the situational damage effects, it's one of the more desirable ones simply because we know when we're going to use it. You know there's going to be daily ops that involve super mutants. You know when you're going to go XP grinding at West Tech. You know when you're going to jump into another event that might involve super mutants. So it's a more useful effect than some of the other ones. Bullets exploding is fantastic. Explosive bullets is definitely one of the better effects you can get. And faster movement speed while aiming. I don't love it because I'm a heavy VATS user. But if you're not a VATS user and you free aim this thing or aim down sights, then, well, maybe you get some mileage out of that. But the other nice thing here is it's a pipe revolver, so you can double dip on your damage perks. You can take rifleman and pistol perks if you put a rifle stock on this. So the pipe revolver, for that reason, and the fact that it can be suppressed, it's a bit underrated. It is an underrated weapon. This one's probably not the best example of it, but it's not a bad one. Let's see what's next on the list tonight. And now we've got a Vampire's Hunting Rifle with VATS hit chance and 25% less VATS AP cost. This one is kind of interesting. So vampires, I don't love this effect on slow firing weapons like this. Vampires is going to be more useful on automatic weapons or very fast melee weapons where you can keep getting those health regen bumps quickly and effectively on top of each other. But it's not totally lost on this either. Now, where this weapon gets really interesting, though, is in the second and third stars. Your 33% VATS hit chance and 25% less VATS AP cost synergize extremely well together. So even though you don't have a really good damage buff for that primary effect, the VATS hit chance is very good. That is essentially a damage boost because what it does is it makes it much easier to target enemy weak spots in VATS, especially from a distance. So heads, for example, are the most common weak spot. If you get a headshot in VATS or a weak spot shot in VATS, you do double damage. That's significant. That makes this a more powerful weapon. Reducing the VATS AP cost makes it that much easier to continue using that. So those two effects pair well together and make for a pretty powerful weapon. Unfortunately, it's a hunting rifle, which isn't amazing. It's a bit underpowered, but it can also be really efficient. If you put one of the 50 caliber receivers on it, you can get a lot of mileage out of that. And now this one is really good. This one is definitely a good roll. We've got an instigating pump action shotgun with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So a while back, instigating was nerfed. It no longer truly does double damage. Now what it's basically doing is doubling your base damage. So it's not as effective on lower powered weapons, but on high powered weapons with high base damage like this one, instigating is still pretty good. VATS critical shots doing more damage, well now there's some additional power that you have, and 250 damage resistance while reloading. While that's lost on a lot of weapons like a handmade that only takes a split second to reload, on this weapon, you're either very commonly reloading 1 or 2 rounds, or you're in a long reload where you're reloading like 8 shots into this thing. So you're doing a lot of reloading in this. You're leaving yourself vulnerable when you do that. So that actually is a good effect to have with this weapon. This is one that I can definitely see us doing a weapon spotlight on. Once we've got special loadouts and I can do a proper shotgun build, I'm interested to take a look at this one. So we at least got something really good today. Let's go ahead and see what else we've got. And next up is not so impressive. We've got a Berserker's grenade launcher with faster fire rate and faster reload. Faster reload is definitely effective on a weapon like this. You have to reload it after every shot, so speeding that up is good. Faster fire rate, I'm not sure if that's going to have much of an effect here. It could speed up that reload animation even more, but it might also not really do anything. So it could be interesting to tinker with it for a minute and just see how it works. Unfortunately, it's got the Berserker's effect as its primary effect. And while it doesn't say it here, what that means is if you have lower damage resistance, you increase your damage dealt, basically if you have 0. But if you have damage resistance, you actually lose power. So that works against you. And for an explosive launcher weapon, I'm not sure that running around without armor is a good choice. It's going to be loud. It's going to draw attention to you. You're going to get shot at. Running around without armor with this is probably a bad life choice. So not a great combo on this weapon. Let's move along. And next up, we've got a Mutant's grenade launcher with VATS critical shots doing more damage and faster movement speed while aiming. So this one, I personally am still just not a huge fan of explosive launcher weapons. They're much better than they were. They fixed the problem with their condition degrading super fast, so they're at least usable now. I'm just not a huge fan of them. I find the damage to be inconsistent, and I don't really enjoy using them. Maybe that will change at some point, but for now, that's kind of where I stand. As for the effects here, Mutant's effect gives you an extra 10% damage if you're mutated, which if you're a higher level player, you probably are, so that's kind of easy, if not super powerful. VATS critical shots doing more damage. I don't know how much VATS you're really using with a weapon like this. I would think that this is more of a hip fire weapon. and faster movement speed while aiming. Same kind of thing. I wouldn't think you're doing a lot of aiming down sights here. This will be more of a hip fire weapon, but I could be wrong on that. I don't use these weapons a lot, so I'm not an expert, but by my estimation, at 18 pounds, this one's going to go back in the script bin pretty quick. Next up, we've got another one that'll go back in the script bin pretty quick. An Assassin's Western Revolver with bashing damage and movement speed while aiming. So the Assassin's effect is probably the most useless of the situational effects. It's 10% damage to humans, which means you get extra damage against players and human NPCs. Human NPCs are already squishy and nobody PvPs in this game, so pretty useless. Bashing damage, as we discussed, is worthless in every way. Faster movement speed while aiming, well, I guess it's better than nothing, but it's not going to be enough to keep this weapon around. Let's move along. And next up, we've got a Ghoul Slayer's Railway Rifle with 50% limb damage and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So let's start with the good here. It's a railway rifle. These weapons are fantastic. They're super powerful. They're fun to use. They're the quintessential Fallout weapon. They're super campy and fun, and I love running around with them. Unfortunately, the effects are not amazing. Ghoul Slayers, it's lost on this weapon. Ghouls are really squishy to begin with, so if you've got a railway rifle, you're going to annihilate them regardless of the legendary effect, so probably not super useful there. Extra limb damage, doesn't hurt to have that, but as far as that second star goes, explosive, faster fire rate, VATS hit chance, better criticals, those are all better than this in my book. 250 DR while reloading, doesn't hurt to have it, and you do reload this weapon frequently, so that's an effect that can pair well with this weapon, but it's probably not good enough to justify keeping it around. Some other effects on there would, but it's still a railway rifle, and railway rifles are very cool. So while it's not an amazing roll, I guess we could have done a whole lot worse. Let's take a look and see what's next. Come on now, Mama Mumbles, give us something good. You're not giving me something good here. Well, you did give me that one instigating shotgun earlier. That's pretty good, but yeah, this is not great. The Exterminator's effect is probably the second most useless of the situational effects. Works against Mirelurks and bugs. Nobody's going hunting for those things. You're not keeping around a special weapon to do that. While it is probably the second most useless compared to Assassins, Assassins is still probably more popular just because it sounds cooler. But other than that, that's a pretty useless primary effect. Limb damage is not totally lost on this weapon. It is a bit underpowered, so being able to maybe hobble some of your enemies to slow them down before they can get to you isn't the worst thing in the world to have if you're running an assault rifle. And less VATS AP cost, well, that's a pretty nice thing to have too. So, the third effect, pretty good. The second effect, The primary effect, ugh. Assault rifles are, in my opinion, underrated and overlooked. I think they're fun weapons to use. They've got some things going for them. But sadly, this one, probably not one that anybody's going to consider much of a winner. Let's see, what do we have next? Now we've got a Mutant's Tesla rifle with limb damage and damage resistance while aiming. So this one's a little more interesting here. We've got the Mutant's effect. So again, 10% damage if you're mutated. It's not a lot, but you also don't have to give up anything to get it. So that's not bad. Limb damage is kind of interesting on a weapon like this. Realistically, where you're going to use this are densely packed events like Radiation Rumble, like Guided Meditation. Maybe if you're farming White Spring, you just want to be able to spam this thing at the ground and get tags on everything. So you don't really need it to do a ton of damage. But if it can cripple some limbs and slow some of those enemies down in the process, well, maybe that's helpful for you and your group. Damage resistance while aiming is kind of lost on this. This isn't really an aim down the sight kind of a weapon. This is very much a hip fire weapon, and it's one that you don't even have to really try all that hard to aim in the first place. So that effect isn't going to do a whole lot for you, but the first two are halfway decent as kind of a pull it out and use it when you want to sort of weapon. I'd prefer if it had reduced weight over the damage resistance while aiming, but could be worse. Now this one's a bit more interesting. And it's interesting because it serves a very specific purpose for a very specific type of player. So you can see here, number one, we've got the 90% reduced weight perk. What that's going to do is dramatically reduce the weight of this weapon. Now, if you put a couple of mods on here, it's going to bring that weight back up a little bit, but it's not going to be that bad. And depending on the type of heavy gunner you are, you may be running bear arms that would reduce that weight even further. And your primary effect here is Mutant Slayers. Is it amazing? No, but it serves a very specific purpose. If you want to go farm XP at West Tech, you're good. You want to go do events that have super mutants at them, you're good. So this can be effective for that. You get an extra 10% buff if you're aiming down sights. So that's useful too. So all those things work in this weapon's favor. The other thing that works in this weapon's favor is that it uses fusion cores for ammo. You have a perk that doubles the life of fusion cores. That also doubles their ammo capacity. You have a legendary perk that every time you get hit with an energy attack, you recharge your fusion core, so you're going to go through less of them. So having a weapon that does that, while maybe not the most effective weapon in the game or the one that you're going to use for everything, in certain scenarios, for certain players, this could be an extremely efficient weapon to use for certain purposes. So not a god roll by any means, but this is the kind of thing that could be good for somebody, and it's why we spend time picking them apart. And this one, sadly, is not a weapon that's going to be very good for anybody. Black powder pistol, as we talked about before, they fire slow, they're loud, they're effective, they do a lot of damage, but not the easiest weapons in the world to use. Vampire's effect is going to be lost on this because it just doesn't fire fast enough to matter. That's critical shots doing more damage. That's a nice thing to have, and it fits this weapon well. But faster movement speed while aiming on top of that, you've got one useful perk here, and it's not going to be enough to make this weapon all that great in the long run. So this one ultimately will end up back in the Scrip bin. All right, let's go ahead and turn a couple other things into the Scrip machine, and we'll take 2 more rolls on this character. All right, 2 left. What do you got for me, Mama Mumbles? Come on now. Give me something good. What do you got? Mutant's grenade launcher with 10% damage while aiming and 15% faster reload. Well, you didn't see it because it's on the cutting room floor at this point, or the virtual cutting room floor, but I got one of these a couple minutes ago. I turned it back into the Scrip machine, and she just spit out another one with a couple of slightly different effects on it. Mama Mumbles, you're going to get bad Yelp reviews if you're literally pulling things out of the garbage and handing them to people. You're going to have to do a little better than that. So yeah, Mutant's effect, it's fine. Damage while aiming, I guess it's fine if you're aiming down sights, but you probably won't be. The most useful thing here is probably the faster reload, but yeah, ultimately not a winner. And ultimately this isn't much of a winner either, although it's maybe a little better. Ghoul Slayer's 50 cal with bashing damage and faster movement speed while aiming. So here, your benefit is that, you know, if you want to go farm White Spring and you're running bear arms so you can carry 9 million different heavy guns with you, then maybe you'll use this for White Spring and some ghoul-centric events. But ghouls are fairly squishy, but heavy guns also don't do super high damage per shot. So with that in mind, having something like this to do a little more damage against ghouls could be efficient. Maybe you get some mileage out of this, but probably nothing crazy. Let's jump to another character and try a couple melee weapons. So what we'll do here is 2 melee weapons and then 2 ranged weapons, and we'll bounce back and forth. And we start with a Vampire's Assaultron Blade with extra strength and reflecting 50% of melee damage back while blocking. So your Vampire's effect here is not totally lost on this weapon. Assuming you're running the right perks, you're going to have decent swing speed here. So it's not totally lost on that. That could be useful. Extra strength is a little bit of a damage buff, so that doesn't hurt. As far as the damage back while blocking, after 150 or so levels with a melee character, I've never blocked once. I can't imagine that that's a useful effect. I don't see it at all. I'm sure someone out there blocks in Fallout 76, and I'm sure they'll pipe up in the comments with it, but I find it totally useless. Let's move on. Now we've got a Berserker's Hatchet with power attack damage and endurance. So this one's a little more interesting in that the endurance gives you more HP, which does synergize a little bit with the Berserker's build, because with that you've basically got to have no armor. I can't imagine that a Berserker's melee build is going to be super fun to run, although if you're looking for a challenge, that might be a good one. 40% more power attack damage is pretty good. That's second only to swing speed, so getting more power attack damage can be useful, but I just don't see the Berserker's effect being super useful on a melee weapon where you're up close and personal and much more likely to take damage. So not in love with this one. Let's move along to some guns. And our first ranged roll here is a Zealot's double barrel shotgun with faster fire rate and 250 damage resistance while reloading. So here again, we've got the Zealot's situational effect. I don't love this on a shotgun like this. Scorched are fairly squishy to begin with, so I don't see that I'm getting a whole lot out of this. 25% faster fire rate. This weapon kind of already fires as fast as I can pull the trigger. It just only fires 2 shots before you have to reload it. So not sure we're getting a lot out of that on here either. 250 DR while reloading. I guess that's good because you're going to have to reload it often. But sadly, I don't think that's enough to save it from the Scrip bin. Let's move along. And our next roll is an Executioner's Pipe Bolt Action Pistol with VATS critical shots doing more damage and extra perception. Classic example of good effects on a not so great weapon. You can double dip on your damage perks with this if you put a rifle stock on it, which is nice. But unfortunately, I just don't really like the pipe bolt action. Something about it just doesn't do it for me. The effects are good. Executioners is highly underrated, super effective against tankier enemies and bosses. VATS critical shots doing more damage, another great perk. Extra perception is going to enhance your VATS accuracy, so the set of perks is excellent. I'm just not in love with the weapon itself. So sadly, not a winner for me. Maybe somebody else would disagree, but I'm not in love with it. Let's jump back to a couple of melee rolls. I'd love to get a good unarmed weapon, but that has never happened yet. Here we have a Zealot's Shovel with reflecting melee damage back while blocking, and 15% less damage while blocking. So basically what we have is a 1-star Zealot's Shovel, because as I said before, blocking effects are pointless in every way, unless you actually block in this game, and I just don't see the reason for it. The Zealot's effect, of course, highly situational, going to give us some extra damage against Scorched. Doesn't hurt, it's nice to have, but yeah, not really enough to save this thing. I guess it's useful if you do the daily that comes up, if you do that one regularly where you have to go bury the bones in the cemetery and you have to dig for them, then having a shovel on you, I guess, is fine. But for that, really the only perk you need is 90% reduced weight. So can't say I'm in love with this one. Let's move along. And next up, we've got okay, this one's a little more interesting. A Junkie's Chinese Officer Sword with swing speed and endurance. So here's where this one's a little bit interesting. So your Junkie's effect, to maximize your damage, you need to take 5 addictions. So that gets you a 50% damage buff. That's solid. Now, it's very common for some of those addictions to detract from your endurance or to remove some of your HP. So getting the extra endurance perk here, that's not a bad thing to have. It can maybe offset one of those addictions. Faster swing speed, I still contend, is the most valuable perk on any melee weapon. Being able to swing it faster increases your DPS and makes it more effective. Because the best way to protect yourself if you're a melee player is to kill your enemies by stabbing them multiple times with a rusty sword. So that works well. The Junkie's effect is good. It's very solid. The Chinese Officer Sword, probably not the most desirable weapon in the game, but some of the mods you can put on it, you can have a good bit of fun with it, so that's not bad. Overall, not a bad roll. I'm okay with this one. Not bad. And now we'll go back to ranged, and here we've got, another instigating shotgun. This is an instigating double barrel with 10% damage while aiming and 25% less VATS AP cost. Much like our pump action shotgun we got earlier, we have a high base damage here, so instigating is still going to do pretty well. 10% damage while aiming, I don't love because I'm a heavy VATS user, but that's not everyone. There's plenty of people who are not VATS users who would get a little extra damage out of that. But then 25% less VATS AP cost, that one does suit me very well. More shots in VATS means more damage, really, because I can keep going instead of needing to stop and wait for my AP to regenerate. So that's good. We got a decent set of effects here. Normally, I like to see the VATS effects, to have two of them there so they synergize, but sometimes splitting the difference is worth something too. So this one's kind of interesting. You can't put a suppressor on it like you can the pump action, so it's a little less useful to me as a sneaky player, but it could be fun to go in fast and loud with something like this. So we'll see what happens later on when I can actually do a shotgun build. And now we've got, oh, she's loving the pipe bolt actions today. Yeah, this one's a loser. Exterminators with damage while aiming and agility. Agility's fine, gives you extra AP for sprinting, extra AP for VATS. Not a bad thing to have, but certainly nothing to write home about. 10% damage while aiming, again, better than nothing, but nothing too amazing either. Damage to mirelurks and bugs, you're just not going hunting for those things, and if you are going to save a weapon for that, it's not going to be a pipe bolt action pistol. It's just not. So unfortunately, sorry Mama Mumbles, you disappointed me with this one. Let's jump back up to melee weapons and see what we've got now. We've got another Zealot's Shovel. Are you kidding me right now? So another Zealot's Shovel, but this one has swing speed and endurance. So if I'm going to keep one around so that I can bury skeletons when I need to, then this is definitely the better choice. If I'm holding it, I've got a little more HP from the endurance. I've got faster swing speed here, which does make it more useful by far. So if I happen to get attacked by something while I'm burying that body, then I've got a little more DPS to defend myself with. And if what happens to attack me during that 60-second span of time is a scorched, I get to do a little extra damage. So sadly, not an amazing roll by any stretch of the imagination, but if you need a shovel, I guess one with swing speed is as good as any. And next up, we've got what is almost a non-legendary Stalker's Shish Kebab. We've got +1 endurance, so you get a little extra HP with that, and supposedly extra endurance helps you resist diseases a bit, but I've yet to see any evidence that that actually works. Stalker's is useless in every way on a melee weapon. On melee weapons, in VATS, you either have a 95% chance to hit or a 0% chance to hit. So increasing that VATS accuracy is doing nothing for you. It is utterly worthless in every single way, and in my experience, it doesn't even work on ranged weapons either, so they really should just pull it, because right now, it's nothing. It's a wasted star. The blocking effect, again, who cares? I'm not blocking in this game. I highly doubt that you're blocking in this game. You're getting nothing out of it. So where this weapon does come in handy, though, is if you have one. If you don't have one, then this one's as good as any. Hold on to it so you can run friendly fire during certain events where you need to heal NPCs. That's what the Shish Kebab is going to be most useful for in Fallout 76, and this one will do that as well as any other, unless the other one has swing speed or 90% reduced weight, then those would be better than this. But yeah, let's continue back to ranged weapons. Come on now. We got a few more rolls here. What do you got? All right, a Mutant's Missile Launcher. That was a little bit of a tongue twister. With 10% damage while aiming and 50 damage resistance while aiming. So this one's a little bit interesting. You've got a second and third star that synergize well together. You get a little damage buff if you're aiming down sights, and you get a little extra protection while you're doing it, so that's not bad. Damage increased by 10% if you're mutated. Not the greatest of damage effects, but again, there's no trade-off for it. You don't have to go low health. You don't have to get a bunch of addictions. You don't have to go without armor. All you have to do is be mutated, and chances are you're going to do that anyway. So gives you a little extra damage, and 10% on a high damage weapon. That ain't nothing. So you know what? You could do a lot worse than this. I'm not a huge fan of the missile launcher and the other explosive launcher weapons, but they're much better than they were since they fixed the weapon degradation speed, so maybe this one isn't so bad. What else do we have here? Okay, now this one's a little more interesting. So we've got a bloodied hunting rifle with bashing damage, and VATS critical meter fills 15% faster. So the bloodied effect, of course, is still king of the hill when it comes to damage. If you're running a bloodied build, something like this can make for a very effective secondary weapon. Bashing damage, unfortunately, is still useless, just as useless as it was at the beginning of the video. And VATS critical meter filling 15% faster, well, that's useful. That's good. Chances are, if you're a rifle build, you've got some VATS critical perks going, so take advantage of that. But the big thing here is efficiency. And with your hunting rifle, you know, what I like to do with the hunting rifle is get the 50 caliber receiver, put that on it, and then what you can do is crank out some 50 cal rounds. They're super cheap to make. You make tons of them, and this weapon fires them slowly. So you can use a weapon like this for lower level events where you just want to, do the event without burning through a ton of ammo. Maybe you're a heavy gunner and you want to go farm ammo in a daily op. Something like this isn't a bad way to do that. You're not going to burn through a ton of it, but you're still going to generate a lot of 50 cal with that receiver. Let's try a melee weapon here, and then we'll get a couple more back. And we've got another useless Stalker's melee weapon. So Stalkers with swing speed and less damage while power attacking. So here our second and third stars are pretty good. Faster swing speed is, in my opinion, still the most useful of the legendary effects on a melee weapon, because that's going to improve your DPS by 40%. So that's a big deal. Taking less damage while power attacking, it doesn't hurt. If you want to power attack and you get caught, then that's going to help you stay alive. Unfortunately, it's got the Stalker's effect, which, as we discussed, is worthless in every way on melee weapons. But, if you want an unarmed weapon with swing speed and you don't have one, then with some mods on here, this could be okay for a little while. Let's trade a couple of things back in and go for two more rolls. We'll do a ranged and a melee. Let's do the melee first. And, oh, interesting. So this is another one of those weapons that isn't really great, but is useful in the right hands in the right circumstances. So once again, we start with 90% reduced weight. That makes this weapon really easy to keep. So you want to be a melee player, you want to hold on to this. That makes it really easy to do. You want something to go grind White Spring with, you want something to do Radiation Rumble with, or guided meditation, any number of these events with ghouls at them, then this is basically going to run around and be a one-shot ghoul killing machine. Faster swing speed is going to make that even easier. When you pair that up with Martial Artist and you get good swing speed already, this just makes it even better. So this slow swing speed weapon becomes much easier to use. Is it the greatest weapon in the world? No. Are you going to use it for everything and build a character around it? No. But as you can see here on my melee character, it weighs 0.4 pounds. If I want to take a giant battle axe to the White Spring Golf Club and mutilate ghouls for 15 minutes, I can do that, and it's cool and it's fun. So not everything has to be a god roll weapon to be good and fun and useful. And this is a good example of that. Is it going to appeal to everybody? No, but it can still be fun. One last roll. This one is less fun than that one. So Western Revolver, Ghoul Slayer's Western Revolver with fire rate and agility. So here again, extra agility means extra AP. That's good. Faster fire rate. I'm not sure that's doing a whole lot for us here. This weapon already fires basically as fast as we can pull the trigger, so not sure we're really going to feel a difference there. The Ghoul Slayer's effect, will it be more effective against ghouls? Sure. But chances are, even if you're running a pistol build or a cowboy gunner build, you've probably got a better weapon than this against ghouls. So, don't know how excited I am about this. I guess maybe if you're a cowboy gunner, you could apply some of the same logic to this as we did with that Grognak's axe, but it's just not, I don't know. doesn't get me as excited. So yeah, not as exciting. And that's going to bring us to the end of our run today. As is all too often the case with the Purveyor sale, you feel like you rolled a lot and you didn't get much out of it. We really did get a couple of good, interesting pieces today, but nothing that anybody's going to really jump up and down about. But we do get to see this interesting sign here advising us as to what a bad idea it is to feed our baby to bears. So remember, if you have a baby, don't feed him to bears. Apparently, that's not good for your baby. It is bad for your baby to feed him to bears. So don't do that. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter for all my updates. And I do hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope I see you next time. Until then, I'm Fisty McRib.